we're fine. I mean, it's the difference of like 3 inches.
You know what, Kate?
No, we'll
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Explain to the kids.
We all have very different topics. We're talking about kind of the fake news scandal and misinformation on the internet. What else do you guys say?
Like, the reason we chose TED Talks is because we wanted a 21st century medium to match our 21st century topic, so it's not like a regular presentation. It has all the hallmarks a regular TED Talk has.
Yeah, we have to meet the exact same requirements of the TED Talk if you're going on a real TED Talk.
Giselle, did you want to ask your question about blogging? I mean, I didn't know. I don't see her.
Oh, I mean, right now, really, it's just I work on writing the Shipley blog, and we're going to be doing a post on the TED Talk. So if there are any people who want to volunteer to help me with that and be featured on the blog, we'll be in touch.
So let her know.
I'll send you an email.
Good to go?
Just get wait till I say.
Are we already doing?
Tell me when to start.
Back here so I can. Travis, you ready?
Yeah.
Cool. You're up.
Okay. The changing face of news, misinformation going viral.
Newspapers, magazines, editorials, articles, tweets, Facebook posts, and memes. I can remember when I was younger, sitting at the kitchen table as my father read the pink pages of the New York Times, or the Financial Times. He would tell me about the news of the world, and I'd sit there and listen. Later, I'd come away from the table with traces of text on my finger and traces of the text in my mind. But now the pink pages of the Times have been replaced by an iPad. And the lengthy articles replaced with quippy headlines from news aggregators. The way we are all consuming news is changing, and we must be careful.
For thousands of years, we as humans have found a need to spread information to a wider and wider audience. In 1440, the printing press was invented, allowing for the written word to be circulated and recirculated, bringing news to the reader exponentially faster. In 1895, the radio was invented, and in 1927, the TV, both revolutionizing news, allowing it to be spread verbally and become a casual practice. People can access it almost everywhere, with radios and TVs blaring, and a 24/7 feed gives the consumer up-to-date access. In 1990, the World Wide Web was created, providing infinite possibilities with the click of a button. Readers not only search, but are also presented with new ideas and topics. In 2004, Facebook was invented, and Twitter follows in 2006. Social media begins the culture of fast click news. Movements go viral. Innocent phenomena like the blue and gold dress explode, and moving photos of moments in our country's history inspire millions.
But with that, we get this. Fast click culture not only allows for the quick dissemination of news and events, but also the spread of intentionally falsified information. Experts tell us that more than 4 in every 10 American adults receives their news from social media. And the internet, social media and the internet in its entirety is the fastest growing source of news in the world. You might ask yourselves, why should I care whether someone receives their news from social media or a newspaper? Isn't the important thing that people are trying to stay and be informed? Understanding the world in both a global and national context is important. But when the most shared articles on the internet look like this, we face a social problem. Statistics show that this group of Americans who receive their news from social media are repeatedly misinformed. The hard part about tracking fake news or studying fake news is that it's difficult to track and quantify. In general, the hard numbers just are not there. Irregardless, due to such news' recent prominence in the past election cycle, we do have a case study. For just election news alone, there were 8.7 million engagements with fake news articles. This outnumbers real news engagements by 1.4 million. And this statistic only counts the number of shares, the number of comments, and the number of likes, not even the number of times the article was clicked on and read. The problem is dissemination of misinformation. And this misinformation affects public opinion of people, places, political parties, and companies. These shifts in mentality greatly affect our world. Just this past Saturday, fake news caused its first shooting. A man who read an article connecting Hillary Clinton to a proposed child prostitution ring cited that article as the reason for his assault. He believed, through the information presented to him on social media, a pizza store to be the front for Clinton's child sex operation, and went with an assault rifle to investigate. The article the man cited started on a few right-wing news blogs and then jumped to Twitter and Facebook, where it went viral. And if you thought that this article was only shared by uninformed members of the general public, you'd be wrong. General Michael T. Flynn, who is President-elect Donald Trump's choice for National Security Advisor, tweeted this article multiple times insinuating its truthfulness. The spread of misinformation through the internet has real-world consequences, whether or not they're as overt and obvious as this. But why do people share news on Facebook and Twitter? Because it is helpful, or funny, or sad? A study at the University of Pennsylvania set forth to find the true intentions of news sharing on social media. The study tracked 7,500 New York Times articles over a period of 6 months to see which articles went viral. A list was then assembled. This list showed how likely article was to go viral based on its underlying themes and contents. Articles that affect us on an individual level led to sharing. This included anything from the new President of the United States to our individual finances. Other articles went viral because they were positive. This may seem counterintuitive, but in fact, some of the past contents to go viral include when people stood or blocked anti-gay protesters from a funeral of one of the men shot during the gay nightclub massacre in Orlando, or when an American athlete helped a fallen runner to the finish line at the Rio Olympics. We also know that practical articles and surprising articles both go viral. But by far the most shared articles are those that inspire awe. The news stories that make us reconsider how the world works, how small things, or how the world is changing, and how small things can change the world. I found this list of traits useful in understanding what people share, but I found myself wondering. I felt as though a part was missing, and that part was truthfulness. There is no easy way for a viewer to discern whether an article was based in years of research or if it was completely fabricated. The only immediate ability a person has is to discern these base traits we just talked about. Therefore, I determined that how truthful something is does not factor into how viral it goes. This led me to the conclusion that anything that was awe-inspiring, anything that caused a paradigm shift, could and most likely would go viral. And the scary part is that these very things that go viral were the same things that changed public opinion, true or not.
The widespread availability of fake news is affecting us on a larger scale than solely the consumption of misinformation. This false information is seeping into reliable media outlets and discrediting news as an entire industry. A new term coined dismediation describes the overall mistrust of the media that this causes for an overwhelming amount of people. I read a quote online which I think describes the problem well. Disinformation, once it's done telling its lie, is finished with you. Dismediation is looking to make you never really trust or believe a news story, ever again. This clearly illustrates that the future of our media is in jeopardy. If media outlets are no longer expected, and therefore obligated, to tell the truth, how can a reader trust any source? The media that we can confidently rely on will soon become far and few. And because of this, factual news outlets, the ones playing by the rules, will suffer. So how do we slow the progress of this dismediation? To answer that question, first we have to understand how these companies and these sites can actually exist in the first place. We would assume that someone, somewhere, would find a way to have these sites shut down. That people who are purposely spreading misinformation would face some sort of consequence. Here's an example of why most of the time the site owners come out unscathed. When you click on the homepage of the website, therightists.com, it looks pretty normal, filled with articles on US politics and global events. Most people wouldn't think twice about the information that they read on the website. However, if you really dig around, you will find this in the About Us section. Here it says, this is a hybrid site of news and satire. Part of our stories already happen, part not yet. Not all of our stories are true. A hybrid of news and satire. Here lies both a disclaimer to avoid all legal repercussions and a perfect excuse to be completely unclear. The site doesn't even signify which articles are truth and which are satire. I know that when I scroll through my Facebook, when I get home from school, more often than not, I see articles like this. I mean, who knew that Yoko Ono had an affair with Hillary Clinton? These are clearly and outrageously false articles. I think to myself, how can anyone actually believe this? Don't they cross-check anything? Cross-checking seems like a no-brainer to most of us. But the statistics have shown us that the majority of people actually disagree. 64% of Americans reported that they get their news from only one social media site, whether it be in 140-character chunks on Twitter or sensationalized articles on Facebook. The culture of cross-referencing information is over, and people are more willing to take the information that is presented to them at face value. This is scary even for small bits of information, like whether the local mall is having a sale or your favorite TV show is having twins. While this misinformation may affect someone's daily routine or their mood on a given day, it does not affect a large population on an incredibly wide scale. People tend to forget about things like this the next day. However, these small bits of misinformation become scary when we see things like this. On the screen are some of the top shared articles leading up to the election on November 8th. These articles all have one thing in common. Yes, they are all clearly wildly false, but they were also all written in Veles, a small town in the core of the Republic of Macedonia. Here, a group of teenagers fabricated these articles with one goal in mind, to generate as many clicks as possible. The more awe-inspiring each article was, the more the teens profited. The monetization of fake news is the engine that drives it. Google's AdSense incentivizes their behavior and that of those like them by rewarding people for how many clicks their article or website receives. A site's exposure is therefore directly correlated to the amount of money that the site owner makes. When I first learned about this program, it seemed like an efficient and a fair way for Google to distribute their advertisements. But as I continued to learn of more and more fake news stories, I quickly found AdSense's Achilles heel, the place where its calculated reward system falls flat. AdSense does not check the sources for accuracy, for credibility, or quite frankly, anything at all. Therefore, it provides no incentive for anyone to be factual. To make money is to follow a formula, similar to one that Max explained earlier. When asked, one of the Macedonian teens said, "Yes, The info in the blogs is bad, false, and misleading. But the rationale is that if it gets the people to click on it and to engage, then use it. This is the sentiment of people who are willingly and consciously putting false news into the hands of those who want to believe it. This is why leading up to Election Day, engagements with fake news outnumbered mainstream news by 1.4 million. In many cases, people actually believe the articles that support what they already believe, that reinforce their preconceived opinions, not what they necessarily believe is factually correct. They're easy targets. If it fits into their mold, the chances of them believing it increase exponentially. And by sharing it on Facebook, they prove to themselves and to everybody else that they were, in fact, correct. Therefore, the cycle continues.
Social engineers like Mark Zuckerberg came under fire recently after the past election. After the election results were announced, Trump protesters were looking for someone to blame. All fingers pointed at Zuckerberg. People questioned, how could he allow such fake news to circulate on his own site? They were enraged, they were disgusted, and they wanted answers. Zuckerberg held a press conference to talk about his involvement in this fake news, or his self-determined lack thereof. He said that more than 99% of what you see on your newsfeed is genuine. So how can this small amount of fake news affect something as big as the presidential election? He then went into explaining that fake news. He explained a new program that included flagging, where users essentially would mark information that they believed or they thought was untrue, and Facebook would go in and correct it. This system is highly flawed due to the fact that people would inject their own biases and tendencies to flag content with which they just do not agree with. Zuckerberg also said that he would minimize the amount of fake news on the site, but he would not get rid of it completely. He believed that people have the right to post what they want, fake or real. If others executives follow Zuckerberg, the spread of fake news is only beginning. And combating it is in the hands of the reader and not the distributor. So what can we do? All of the electronic solutions are a temporary problem to a non-temporary, or a temporary solution to a non-temporary problem. Internet news is here to stay. For all the bad it brings a lot of good to society. Now news is not controlled by a single news outlet, and at the click of a button, we have access to a plethora of articles and topics. What instead needs to change is us, the consumers. The dilemma we face now is reminiscent of where media was at in the 1950s. News outlets found that they were now able to inject themselves into the everyday lives of Americans through TV channels, TV news channels. This new power demanded new responsibilities, and the public demanded an answer. The media developed what we call now media ethics. Yet the shift we see today is paradoxically easier and harder than the one we faced in the 1950s. On one hand, we are the only ones that need to change. Many of us see a desired change that we individually can enforce through clicks, shares, and likes. Yet on the other hand, discerning fake news from real news is easier said than done. If we look back at our hierarchy of importance, we need to add a frame of truthfulness. We need to realize that those responsible for what we see online and what others see online is a direct result of what you click on and what you share. So before using this power, you should check where an article is from and whether its contents are verified or not. The only way we can produce a change is to produce a new understanding. Thank you.
As you guys get set, anybody have any comments?
Questions?
That was great. You guys killed it. Any questions?
Yeah, any
Any aha moments? Any aha surprising things you heard? No? You ready? Okay. You're on.
My name is Sam Lazarus.
And my name is Ellie Rampulla. Have you ever heard anyone kind of talk like this? Almost everyone uses like and in their daily speech. It's almost impossible to find someone who doesn't.
Like, and other fillers, like such as, kind of, I mean, you know, well and so. Happen in our speech once every 30 words. Seems like a lot.
So, just to show you how much Shipley students use like and in their daily vocabulary, we took a couple of videos. What happens in these videos is each of the students talks about what happened from the beginning of their day to the very end. Let's take a look.
I woke up, I took a shower and got ready, and then drove to school with my mom. Then I had my first period free, the second period I had maths, third period I had free.
From the moment I woke up, I just took a shower, got dressed, got in the car, came to school, went to class, left class, got breakfast, came back to that class. I woke up, took a shower, I came to school, took a nap, went to like 2 classes, and had some breakfast and some coffee. He was just like, all right, and I was like, thanks.
Okay, so what did you guys think? I'm not sure if you noticed, but every single one of them said like and at least once when they spoke, except for one, and that was Courtney. Let's talk about Dan and Raina, the people in the video. Raina started out by saying and pretty much said it every other word. Dan said it pretty frequently too, but not as much as Raina. Now let's talk about Katie. Katie's pretty known in our class for saying like and a lot, isn't she? But in this video, she talked for about 2 minutes and 45 seconds and said like and only about 6 to 8 times, which isn't too bad for her. It's a little bit below the national average, which is about 3. Saying like and isn't really necessarily good, and it isn't necessarily bad. In some cases, it can be a credibility killer, which is something that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. It can also make you seem unintelligent, underprepared, just downright stupid. Now, there's an important fine line in between what can help you and what can hurt you when we're talking about like and Now, let's consider a real-life scenario that we're all going to encounter in the next couple of years. I know we're all going to have job interviews sometime in the near future, so we might as well start getting ready. Now, let's consider this. One of us walks into a job interview, all flustered, saying like and every other word or every other sentence. I think we can all agree that's probably not going to reflect very well on us. Not only is it going to make us seem underprepared, but it's also going to make us seem as though we lack the basic social skills that are needed for sales or other jobs in the professional world. It's also going to make us seem more underprepared, as I said before, and it's also going to make us seem less mature. But let's think about it on the flip side. Say we go in, all confident, saying like and sparingly. It's going to be a different view that the job interviewer has on you. They're going to think of you as more confident, more mature, and obviously well prepared.
Regardless of situation, it's important to be mindful of how we use like and how our audience reacts to like and Some people have a much higher tolerance for like and while some people really get irritated. For example, out of a survey of 10 adults, all 10 of them said they don't like when people use like and However, and 8 out of 10 of them said they do not want their children using like and at all. Now, I'm sure that we can all remember some kid getting up in front of the class, 20 or 30 so people maybe in a larger presentation, nervous, saying like and every other word. Hopefully Ellie and I are not doing that right now. However, in a more social setting and regular conversation, the cause of like and might not be nervousness and anxiety, but instead conscientiousness. A study done by Brigham Young University suggests that those who use like and are actually more thoughtful and conscientious rather than nervous and anxious. In a study we did in the Shipley community, we were able to confirm this. How we did this is we recorded how many times students use like and per minute. We tried to correlate this with self-assessed personality traits, anxiety, and thoughtfulness. What we found is that there was absolutely no correlation between anxiety and nervousness in filler usage. However, there was a direct correlation between thoughtfulness and filler usage. Meaning, the more someone uses Lycanon, the more thoughtful they consider themselves to be.
So, does it mean when we use Lycanon a lot in conversation, we are more conscientious or thoughtful?
Not exactly. It doesn't mean that when you use Lycanon, you are being thoughtful. Sometimes you are genuinely nervous, or you're speaking too fast, or don't know really what you're saying.
So, let's think about this from another perspective. From the perspective of some of the most notorious public figures of our time. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Kim Kardashian. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are pretty respected members of society, and so Kim Kardashian not as much. Let's consider how Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are different than Kim Kardashian when they speak. How we're going to do that is we're going to watch 3 clips. The first clip is going to be from President Barack Obama's second presidential debate in 2012. The second clip is going to be from Hillary Clinton's first presidential debate with Donald Trump earlier this year. And then the third is going to be an excerpt from a live interview that Kim Kardashian had with Jimmy Kimmel earlier this year.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, for this opportunity. I want to thank Governor Romney and the University of Denver for your hospitality. There are a lot of points. I just want to wish sweetie Governor Romney 2 wars.
Donald for
It's very good to have you here. You and Kanye are not still living with your mother, are you?
We finally just moved out.
I know it sounds like a joke, but you guys lived there for how long did you live with
Yeah,
your
I know
mother?
people didn't understand why we live with my mom. I mean, after a year and a half, she got really crazy with us and pretty much not kicked us out, but just was really anxious to get us out.
She was more anxious to get you out of the house than you were to get out of the house yourself.
Yeah, she thought I just got too comfortable and I started to rearrange all her furniture and order, different wallpaper. I was going crazy with some of the things in her house.
Okay, so what did you guys think? You might not be able to tell this, but Barack Obama spoke for about 40 minutes in his second presidential debate. And he said Lycanon about 269 times. Now that's a huge amount if we think about it, seeing as the national average is about 3 times per minute, and he said it about 5.5 times per minute. Now let's consider Hillary Clinton. She also spoke for about 40 minutes, and she said Lycanon only 1 time. It's not too bad considering the national average again. Now finally, let's talk about Kim Kardashian. Did anyone notice that she didn't say it 1 time during her interview? It's kind of shocking given her reputation. But you might not believe us still. We all know that Kim Kardashian says Lycanon, right? We actually searched the internet for all of her live interviews over the past 5 years, and she didn't say it 1 time. It's pretty shocking, right?
So why haven't we noticed? We just saw that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, in their public addresses, they use Lycanon all the time. Kim Kardashian, though, we see her as this valley girl, I guess, if you want to say it. Now, we looked into this question with the study we did in the Shipley community. In this study, we had Miss Willing, one of our wonderful biology teachers, record herself explaining 2 scientific concepts. Let's listen to them.
So one of the examples of matter being recycled within an ecosystem is the carbon cycle. Carbon is very important because it's one of the major atoms that make up living organisms on Earth. We are carbon-based life forms.
So that was Miss Willing explaining the carbon cycle. And if you notice, she can only use once or twice. So in this one, she'll use it a little bit more, so make sure to pay attention to that.
In potential energy versus kinetic energy, and how you might be able to explain the whole process of small bundles of energy to make it usable. So a carburetor, for example, I think in a car is a little bit like taking a large bunch of energy and breaking it down to smaller bundles of energy. So for example, you take a carburetor.
Continuing our experiment, we gathered 2 groups of Shipley students and had them listen to each of these recordings. we told one group, first actually, we'll mention just to briefly go back to recording 1 and recording 2. The national average being 3, as Ellie had mentioned, these recordings gave us a good measure of the kind of how the extremes go from filler usage. So in our groups, we had Group A pay attention to the content of what Ms. Williams was saying, while Group B paid attention to her speech patterns. Now, the first thing that we looked at was how comprehension changed from recording 1 to recording 2. What we got is that for both groups, from recording 1 to recording 2, they understood recording 1 better, where Ms. Williams used like far less, which suggests that in a learning-based, lecture-based environment, students will understand a lecture with less like than one with more. Makes sense, right? So as teachers, I know we notice our students using like all the time. I notice too as well. But we definitely need to be cognizant of how teachers use like as well, because it definitely affects students' learning, regardless whether they're paying attention to our content or our speech patterns. The most shocking statistic we found here was the transition from the understanding of Group A to Group B. For both recordings, Group A understood all the content far better than Group B. In fact, there was a 40% decrease in comprehension from Group A to Group B in both recording 1 and recording 2. Meaning if students pay attention to the content of what a teacher is saying, they'll understand the material far better than if they're paying attention to speech patterns. Now, obviously, when we're giving a public presentation or a teacher is teaching a class, no one's really paying attention to how someone uses like and on. However, if I were to go up here and say like and I'll rail off every other word, you're probably going to get a little bit distracted. And really instead of paying attention to what I'm saying, you're not paying attention to how I say it and not understanding what I'm saying.
Okay, so let's circle back to our fantastic Kardashian, Obama, Clinton example. It's all about what we pay attention to here. So there are two main things we should pay attention to. What determines what we pay attention to? There are two things. The first thing being reputation. I think we can all agree that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are pretty respected members of our society. They're very highly educated. They both went to Ivy League schools, and they've been very successful in their professions. And then there's Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian isn't as respected, and she didn't have as high of a level of education as the other two did. Now, when you search her education online, like we did here, there are two things that come up. The first thing are these articles, where her and Kanye fight about whether their child should have a formal education or one that's not as great. And then there's a picture that comes up of her high school. It's not the same as the politicians, is it? Now, the second thing that we consider here is content. Let's think about Barack Obama for a second. We didn't realize that he was saying like 5.5 times per minute because we were focusing on his content. We cared about what he had to say, so we didn't really care about the delivery. But let's think about this scenario. Let's assume that Barack Obama speaks 5.5 per minute like he usually does, but instead of saying something presidential, he talks about something a little bit different. Let's say he talks about how he wants to walk in the next New York Fashion Week, or how he wants to design clothes with Kanye. Sure, it'd be funny at first, and we think it's a little weird, but then after that, as he drones on and drones on, I think we'd get a little bit bored, and our attention would change from the content of what he has to say to the way he delivers. We'd be distracted by his likes and ums. Now, let's think about Kim Kardashian on the flip side. Let's say Kim Kardashian doesn't have that college degree still. Let's say that besides filming her TV show and doing whatever else that she does, she's devoted her life to climate change. She travels the world, she speaks to thousands of people, she even proves that climate change is real. Now, when she speaks, we focus on the content. We don't care about how she delivers what she has to say. We're focused on the content. It's important to us, so we're going to listen. We're not distracted by the way she delivers, and that's important. It's all about what we pay attention to.
So what now? We just told you a bunch of statistics and justifications of why people use like and on. So how do we, as speakers and as listeners, improve the way we communicate? First off, for speakers, it's important to realize that if you do say like and on, it's not the end of the world. People may not even notice. As listeners, it's also important to pay attention to content and not delivery, not speech patterns, to be an active listener. And then in regular conversation, if you do find yourself being distracted, it's important to let the person that you're speaking with know that they're using Lycon and say, here are some strategies for both speakers to get rid of Lycon. First, the most common one is to simply pause. When you're going to say Lycon, you stop speaking and you just leave a little bit of space to let yourself think. Another way to do it is to simply think about your exact sentence before you even start speaking. What we say and how we say it matters every day. So keep in mind, whether in formal speech or just regular conversation, that what you say is just as important as how you say it.
Well done, team. It's done. And there were very few likes or wrongs, might I say.
Yes, earlier there were.
Thoughts on this one? Yeah.